Welcome into Steelers Talk. On today's show, we're going to be talking about my updated list of wide receiver trade targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So today, we've got 10 names. I'm going to be ranking them 1 to 10 based on which players, if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would target the most aggressively before the NFL trade deadline comes here in just a few weeks. Now, make sure you guys go down there right now and click that subscribe button, because when the con artist strikes, all right, when he delivers, the next wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I do believe Omar is going to get a deal done before the deadline. When it happens, we're going to be going live right here on the channel for breaking news coverage. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I appreciate your guys' support. First up here, let's talk about some names that are getting floated around on kind of social media and, on the internet, all these different things that I just think are not very likely to happen. Some trade ideas, some trade targets that are floated around that I just don't think are going to come to fruition. So let's start with the ones I am near 100% sure are not happening. So we'll start with T. Higgins. Just don't see the Bengals helping out their arch rival, especially giving them a bona fide or like a borderline number one receiver in T. Higgins. Just don't see that whatsoever. Then we get to Garrett Wilson, all right? And I know that some teams have been calling about Garrett Wilson, seeing if the Jets would be open to trading him. But listen, man, they just drafted him extremely, extremely high. He's on his rookie contract. He is still very, very talented. They're banking on him developing a chemistry with Aaron Rodgers down the stretch here, and he is arguably the best number 2 receiver in football right now behind Devontae Adams. So I just don't see the Jets parting ways with Wilson. And then DK Metcalf for the Seahawks, all right? Right now, the Seahawks are sitting in first place in the NFC West, okay? And I just don't really see the Seahawks selling players by the deadline. I think the only way Metcalf actually gets traded anywhere this season is if he straight up demands a trade. And at this point, with the Seahawks sitting with an above 500 record at this point, I just don't see Metcalf demanding his way out of Seattle. So as much as, the Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf connection would be awesome here in Pittsburgh, I just don't really see that as a realistic possibility. Some other names that I think are less likely, maybe not impossible, but certainly not super likely at this point. Courtland Sutton. The Steelers inquired about him this offseason. The Broncos shut him down, and right now the Broncos are sitting above 500, so it appears like they're not going to be selling at the deadline either. And then Deebo Samuel, I think, is a name that teams have been calling about. Diana Rossini reported that teams are kind of keeping tabs on Deebo Samuel because I think the 49ers are probably going to try and trade Deebo next offseason, but I still think they're trying to win, even with all their injuries, even though they've started 3-4 this season. I do think that Deebo Samuel is probably going to remain a 49er for the rest of this year. So let's get into my list here, starting with my number 1 trade target. And if you've been watching the show lately, you should know that my number 1 trade target for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I honestly think he's in a class of his own, a tier of his own on this list, is Cooper Kupp. Because out of all the receivers that are realistic options for the Steelers that I'm going to be talking about today, I think Cooper Kupp is the only guy that could usurp George Pickens as this team's number 1 receiver immediately. All right, I think he brings so much to the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he ends up being traded here. You take a look at my scouting report. Pretty much everything about his game on the field is positive. He's got great size. He's an excellent run blocker. He separates down the field, intermediate and short. He's great after the catch. He's got reliable hands. He's been a number 1 receiver on a Super Bowl team. He's won a game-winning catch in a Super Bowl. The only con is that he's getting a little bit older at 31 years old, but that's not ancient, and he does have a little bit of an injury history, especially with his ankle. But you take a look at the cap hits for him, man. If the Steelers trade for him, you get Cooper Kupp for 3 more seasons at a pretty reasonable price. I mean, remember when we were talking about the Steelers potentially giving Brandon Ayuk $28 to $30 million on his next contract if they ended up landing him? You could get Cooper Kupp for $20 million in 2025, and then a little bit less than that in 2026, plus a pretty affordable rate in 2024, especially if the Rams end up taking some of his salary. And I just think that from a skill set perspective, his versatility, being able to line up outside, in the slot, and even in the backfield can provide so much and just add another element of creativity for Arthur Smith and his game planning here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can target him deep, intermediate, short area, on third downs. You can do so much with Cooper Kupp, which is why I think that if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be doing pretty much whatever it took, and I'd be sending the full court press to get this cat in a Steelers uniform as soon as I possibly can. So let me know down there in the comments section, what is the percent chance that Pittsburgh lands Cooper Kupp? Put it on a scale scale for me of 0 to 100 for today's pinned comment. Coming up here, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, give me a number between 0 to 100 of the likelihood that Kupp becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler. Number 2 on my list is Darius Slayton, wide receiver from the New York Giants, okay? And Darius Slayton, I think, has been one of the most underutilized talents at the receiver position simply because of the quarterback that he's been playing with in Daniel Jones. Darius Slayton is a downfield vertical threat. This guy runs a 4.3, and Daniel Jones is the type of receiver that never throws it down the field. Okay, so his skill set as kind of that vertical threat, nice size, all this different stuff, it's been completely just negated by the New York Giants' lack of quarterback play throughout his career, which is why his production in New York just hasn't been elite. But I think he could take his game to a whole nother level here in Pittsburgh. Plus, he's only 27 years old. The kicker is the Steelers would have to sign him most likely to a new contract, especially if they don't want to make this a one-year rental. But I actually think he is a great fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do, because what do they want to do? They want to have that ground and pound run game with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, and then they want to throw deep balls off of play action to guys like George Pickens with Russell Wilson throwing his moon balls. And this is certainly somebody that has the skill set to be able to play in this type of offense. He can separate down the field. This guy runs a 4.3 40, all right? And he does it with good size at over 6'1" and just about 200 pounds, all right? So he is a vertical deep threat. He's got reliable hands. I think that he has a little bit more route versatility compared to a guy like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who I kind of compare his game to. But it's kind of a similar version to MVS, only he's a way, way better version. I think that he's got way more reliable hands, doesn't have the drop issues. I think he's a better route runner, better short area quickness. Now, the production hasn't exactly been there, but like I said, I think that's because he's been playing with Daniel Jones for all these years, and he hasn't gotten an opportunity to really shine. So I think that Slayton would be a really, really good number 2 receiver option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he comes at a pretty darn reasonable price tag for this season at, his base salary is 2.5. And by the way, that's prorated. So that's going to be even less because he's already played games with the New York Giants this season. So he's not going to really cost the Steelers anything if they end up making the trade. And then also, I think he could be a very solid number 2 option, not only for this year, but for many years to come in this style of offense that the Steelers like to run. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, I got more top wide receiver targets for the Steelers to consider. But before we get into the rest of today's show, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Mando Whole Body Deodorant. And let me ask you guys kind of a weird question here for a second. How do you deodorize your balls? Most people will just use soap in the shower or even put some cologne down there. But after a few hours, the smell starts to fade and the less desirable smell starts to come up during the day. Lucky for you, our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant have come up with the perfect solution with their brand new spray deodorant. It won't irritate your sensitive bits because the first ingredient is water, not alcohol, and it's proven to control odor for 72 hours. It also has a 360-degree spray and works upside down. So it's perfect for getting this stuff anywhere on your body from any angle. Take advantage of Mando's special offer for just Steelers Talk listeners, which gives new customers $5 off their best-selling starter pack with code CHAT at shopmando.com. So listen, man, here's some of the products. I got some of them right here. This is the deodorant spray right here. It's got the bourbon leather scent, so it's like a cologne quality scent. Plus, it keeps you smelling fresh for up to 72 hours. It works upside down as well. It's got the 360-degree a cap as well for the sprayer. Plus, you guys, when you get your starter pack here, you guys can get one of the mini body washes here, also bourbon leather. I got a big bottle of this of my own at my house in my personal bathroom because I think it smells absolutely fantastic and keeps me smelling fresh all day long. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash that I just showed you, and they also have really great deodorant wipes as well, so if that's your thing, you can pick that as well. Plus, you get free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. So use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. It's time to start smelling better naked with Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. Number 3 on my list of top wide receiver trade targets is Jakobi Meyers from the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, will the Raiders really want to trade away Meyers because he's pretty much now their number 1 receiver? I guess we'll have to see if they end up trying to trade him and really try to embrace this full rebuild. But he does have 2 years left on his current deal, including this season. So the Steelers would get him for 1 more season after this year if they trade for him. He's also 27 years old, just like Darius Slayton. He brings good size to the table as well. Now, the reason why I have Meyers ranked a little bit lower than Darius Slayton is because he doesn't have the vertical threat ability, but he's got great hands, and we'll go over his scouting report here in just a second. But just like Slayton, he's also very affordable. You get a $5 million prorated rate if you trade for him before the deadline, and then 2025 for your number 2 receiver, and that's what he'd be if you trade for him, just $11 million. That's a very reasonable amount of money for your number 2 receiver if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you guys can see in my scouting report here, this guy catches everything. All right, he's got great size, and he catches contested balls all over the place, man. Deep balls, intermediate, tough over the middle. You can make those tough fade catches in the red zone. And then also the run blocking, not the pun blocking, F. Coop in the chat for the misspelling there, but the run blocking is awesome, man. This guy is so physical, and I love the mentality he brings to the turf every single Sunday. And even though he doesn't have the best long speed, he ran a 4.63 coming out, he's a very crafty route runner, and I think that his short area quickness allows him to be a pretty crafty route runner and get open against man coverage. I think he's a legit number 2 receiver. Now, personally, if I'm going to be trading a 5th-round pick, which is what I think it'll cost to get either one of these receivers, I would probably go with Darius Slayton just because he brings that extra element of speed and potential home run hitting ability to the table that Jakobi Meyers just doesn't bring. But then again, Meyers brings more physicality as a run blocker, so it's kind of pick your poison here. So let me know down there in the comments section, which player would you rather trade a 5th-round pick for? Type DS for Darius Slayton or type JM for Jakobi Meyers. Number 4 on my list here is Mike Williams, and we've talked about Mike quite a bit on the show here. Now, he does have a little bit of an injury history and all these different things, and I do think he's got a limited skill set. I think if he comes to Pittsburgh, he can really only play one kind of role, which is like a true X receiver. But honestly, man, like he kind of fits what the Pittsburgh Steelers want. He is big, 6'4", 218 pounds. He's got super reliable hands. He can win those 50-50 balls that Russell Wilson loves to chuck up. Okay, so if they leave him in single coverage, you can trust Mike Williams to make those catches down the field and then also in the red zone. And then he has a little bit of a vertical threat in this way because he can bring in those 50-50 balls, but the short area quickness is not there, which really limits his route versatility. He's not going to be running a vast array of routes. You can't put him in the slot. There's definitely limitations to Mike Williams' game, but in terms of what the Steelers want, Mike Williams fits a need on their offense that they like. They want to move George Pickens to the slot at times. They want to put George Pickens at Z and kind of expand his route tree because George is actually a very underrated route runner, in my opinion. And they would like to do more stuff with him in that regard, which is why the Steelers were heavily interested in signing Mike Williams in free agency before he ended up landing with the New York Jets. So there's no doubting Williams is a really good fit. I would rather have the 3 guys I have above him on my list, but right now I think that, Cooper Kupp's one. Then they'll try and see and kick the tires on Meyers and Slayton. And then I kind of think at this point, Mike Williams is kind of their safety blanket. So I think that is probably the case. Plus, he's extremely affordable, whereas Cooper Kupp will probably cost you at least a 3rd. Darius Slayton and Jakobi Meyers will cost you probably at least a 5th. I think that you can get Mike Williams for probably like a conditional 6th or even a 7th-round pick, okay? So I think that those are kind of the reasons why he is an attractive option to some. But like I said, he does have some of those injury concerns as well. Now, for the rest of this list here, I just personally wouldn't really go after them because I think Mike Williams would be a better fit than all of these guys, and he'd be many times cheaper to get than all these guys. But I have Christian Kirk at number 5. He's more of a true slot receiver. He does get open. But I don't know if the Steelers want a true slot receiver here in Pittsburgh, all right? Plus, the money is a little bit tricky with Christian Kirk. It's still a little bit of a hefty contract here. I don't know how the Steelers are really going to make it work with Christian if they want to go target him, but I guess we'll see. Number 6, Adam Thielen. I just don't know if I love the fit with Thielen and the Minnesota Vikings. He does have good hands. He's always been very, very reliable as a red zone threat. But in terms of route running, in terms of separation, he doesn't really provide much of that at this point in his NFL career. So personally, I would rather have Mike Williams than trade more for a guy like Adam Thielen. Another name here that's kind of interesting, Odell Beckham Jr. The Miami Dolphins are kind of in the pooper right now, and they might be looking to sell a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. He's on a 1-year contract. Odell wants to win now. Odell will have a serious role here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I have him lower down on my list. He would be pretty inexpensive. I think he's a little bit washed at this point, but I do have him on this list because he helped the Rams win a Super Bowl after a trade 1 year. So he's definitely an option as well. Kendrick Bourne is number 8 for me. Kind of an unremarkable option. Not the best athlete in the world, not the best separator. He's crafty. He's got reliable hands. He's a willing run blocker. But there's a reason why New England might unload him, and they pretty much replaced him with Jalen Polk this season. John Metchie is number 9. Now, I like John Metchie, but he's been a healthy scratch this year for Houston, and it seemed like that he was kind of a person that the Steelers could have gotten out and got if they really wanted him, and nothing really surfaced there. So I don't really think John Metchie is a super great option for the Steelers, or very realistic option, if I'm being honest. And then another guy that's been thrown around since way back when the Titans grabbed Calvin Ridley and even Tyler Boyd, Treylon Burks. Certainly somebody to add on this list. He kind of technically fits the Steelers offense in terms of run after the catch, physical type receiver, bigger guy, but I just don't think he's a very good player. He doesn't separate at all. He's not particularly good in his route running, and he doesn't separate down the field, so that's why he's number 10 on this list. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which wide receiver do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers should trade for? Are you a Cooper Kupp guy? Do you want to go trade, get less for Darius Slayton or Jakobi Meyers? Do you want to pay even less than that and go get Mike Williams? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. For me, I'm going all in for Cooper Kupp. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because like I said, whenever the con artist strikes, if he makes a trade for a receiver, we are going to be going live right here on Steelers Talk with breaking news coverage. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. Until next time, here we go, Steelers.